Welcome back, guys. It's Fully Live Athlete Pastor Channel. It's Justin speaking, and we are going to be on day 82 of the online Bible Reading Club series. We're reading through the Bible, verse by verse, chapter by chapter, so we can connect the dots and really learn to love Christ more through the Word of God written. With that said, our reading today is going to actually be Joshua 12, 13, 14, 15. I forgot to include a chapter yesterday, but I'm going to summarize it, and we're going to put Luke 1, 57 through 80. We're reading the last quarter of the long chapter 1 of Luke. Luke is the longest gospel, and we are taking it chunk by chunk. Let's get to the Joshua passages first today in the Old Testament. Now, we've seen the end of the conquest, and now we're going to see the first thing is that some of the kings and the peoples haven't been defeated yet, and they will remain in the land and not be defeated. And this is going to be a continuing problem, is that though they rested from the war was essentially over and won. The people had taken the promised land, and that's been the story that we've been building up to since the beginning of Exodus, when the people are in slavery. After the completion of Genesis, the people were in slavery in Egypt. They're set free and on a journey to the promised land. Well, they crossed over into the promised land in Joshua 3. Joshua has taken the baton from Moses and is now a military commander of the Lord's army, who is a type of Christ. Go back to Joshua 5 and see how he's a type of Christ. And Joshua has led the people on an extraordinarily successful conquest. King after king has been defeated. Very few hiccups along the way. Now, three things today. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's an inheritance for all the tribes, even the ones who decided to stay on the east side of the Jordan, but still fought and helped the Westerners take over the promised land. So they get their inheritance first. A couple of bad guys still there, the Girgashites, and these guys are still over there too. Now, it notes that the Levites did not have an inheritance, for the sacrifices of the fire were their inheritance, and the Lord himself is their inheritance. And frankly, I really identify with this tribe because God hasn't given me land, and even if he had given me land, that thing is not the ultimate deal. The land is a type or a picture of the new heaven and the new earth, when God himself will descend in Jesus Christ and establish his reign as the true and rightful king of creation. And he will eliminate sin and the devil and all opposition and renew the groaning creation. Go look up Romans 8, 21, 22, and 23 there, and see that even the creation groans and is looking for resurrection too, and it will be resurrected. You'll be set free from its bondage to decay and corruption, as it says there. Well, I'll have to say, yours and my inheritance is pictured in the Levites' inheritance. They had no land, as any believer truly has no land, but the whole land of beyond the Israel, Jordan or Israelite Palestinian area. That land in the Middle East is not our land. The whole of creation is ours because it's Christ, and we're united to Christ, and so it is ours as well. All right, secondly, notice Caleb. He says, I'm 81 now. I'm old. It's been 45 years since I first went in as a spy into the land, and now we've taken this land. He and Joshua are the lone men standing from that first journey into the promised land, where they brought back fruit of this land flowing with milk and honey to encourage the people, but some of them were terrified because there were giants in the land. Well, you know what Caleb says? He says, I'm as strong as I used to be. And back when I was a 40-year-old young man then, I'm 41 right now, I can identify. But he says at 85, he's as strong as then. So he says, here's what I want to do. Joshua, grant me to have this city, Hebron. And it's going to be renamed because it used to be named after the chief of the giants, who's going to be one of the forerunners of Goliath. And Goliath takes on, ultimately, Goliath is a big picture of the serpent, right? He takes on armor that the wording there is very similar to the reptilian serpent imagery, right? He wears the serpent. He wears the picture of Satan on him, and he mocks God, right? Well, what Caleb wants to do in retirement is he's not going to retire. He is going to become a giant hunter. He is going to hunt down the remnant, which we saw yesterday, of those giants that are left out there that somehow got away. But the giants' people has been absolutely destroyed. There are a few outliers, a few who are still hanging on and in hiding. And Caleb, one of the faithful spies who knows that God fights the battles, as an old man is going to go and seek out conquest. And he's going to go and seek out giants to kill because they're enemies of God. Fascinating and wonderful point, isn't it? Well, think about that. So that's the second thing I want to tell you today. And then the third thing, let's flip over to the New Testament and look at it. And you've got here the birth of John the Baptist, who we've been building up to, and Zechariah. His father finally is able to speak again. He's been silenced by an angel when he's doing his temple duties, right? Well, so he finally speaks, and they name the baby John, which is a miraculous thing, and that story's really cool and all, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. What I want to talk about is the Zechariah prophecy, right? Zechariah doesn't actually know how it's all going to work out. He's still living off of this way that God, the God of Israel, has visited and redeemed his people, particularly the house of his servant David. Now, it's a shell of what it used to be, right? But he talks about how he shows mercy that he promised to our fathers and remembers his holy covenant, the oath that he swore to our father Abraham to grant that we'd be delivered from the hands of our enemies. Well, they still dwell in fear of the enemies, actually. Rome is an enemy. And so he knows, he believes, God is going to raise up this descendant of David to overthrow their enemies. And he already says they're redeemed as people. Now, they haven't actually been redeemed. They still have enemies. They're very much subjugated underneath, but he views it as present. Why does he view it as present in the beginning of his prophecy in 68? How can he have that perspective, right? It says here that the child here, Jesus or John, will be the prophet of the Most High. He'll go before the Lord to prepare his ways, to give knowledge of salvation to his people in the forgiveness of their sins, because of the tender mercy of God. The forgiveness of their sins, this is their great need. I don't know if you know this, but this is your great need. And the good news is it is already accomplished in Jesus' resurrection, because we are united to him through faith. His justification, his resurrection or his justification is ours. It is established. What he has done is ours. We have the forgiveness of sins because of what he did, not ever what we do. And that is the fundamental reality. That's Zechariah's fundamental hope at the end of the day, is that the tender mercy of God, not our works, right? He says that in verse 78. And you see that he's going to give light to those who sit in the darkness and the shadow of death and guide their feet into the way of peace. Peace with God, shalom with God, forgiveness of sins, restoration, wholeness, fullness, rest. That's what we have by the tender mercies of God. Mercies of God, not our works, but the work of the King Jesus, who his son John would testify about. Union with Christ is the greatest thing we can ever believe and know and hear about. That we're united to him in his life, death, and resurrection through faith. And all that he has secured for us is ours. Peace with God, eternally and forevermore. All right, this has been the Online Bible Reading Club, day 82. God bless you guys. Go ahead and like the video. It's my pleasure, as always, to read through the Bible with you and give you these reviews or previews, whichever way you want to do it. Like the video, subscribe, comment, ask questions, and we'll be in touch. See you next time on day 83. Peace.